Ms. Linda Harrow believed discipline was power, and cruelty its instrument. In her fifth-grade classroom at Jefferson Elementary, she enforced obedience with icy precision, mistaking fear for respect. When 10-year-old Ava Gaines arrived one Monday morning with beautifully braided hair and bright confidence, Harrow saw not a student, but a challenge to her authority. By afternoon, that challenge ended in humiliation. Harrow shaved Ava's hair off in front of her classmates, calling it correction and discipline. To her, it was just another act of control. What she didn't know was that Ava's mother was the city's police captain, and she was about to learn what real power feels like. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The morning sun painted golden squares on the kitchen counter as Rochelle carefully packed Ava's lunch. She tucked a small note between the sandwich and apple, just like she did every day. Through the window, birds chirped their morning songs, matching Ava's cheerful humming from the bathroom where she was giving herself final checks in the mirror. "Mom, do you think everyone will like my hair?" Ava called out, her voice bouncing off the bathroom tiles. Rochelle smiled, remembering the hour they'd spent last night getting the braids just right. "Baby, your hair is beautiful. You look perfect for picture day." Ava bounded into the kitchen, her backpack already strapped on. The intricate braids caught the sunlight, each one neat and precise, showing off hours of careful work. Her white uniform shirt was crisp and clean, her navy skirt perfectly pressed. "Come here. Let me look at you." Rochelle's heart swelled with pride as she took in her daughter's appearance. At 10 years old, Ava already carried herself with a quiet grace that reminded Rochelle of her own mother. Rochelle bent down and kissed Ava's forehead, breathing in the sweet coconut scent of her hair products. "You're going to have the best picture in the whole fifth grade." The drive to Jefferson Elementary was filled with Ava's excited chatter about the upcoming class projects and which background she might choose for her photos. Rochelle savored these morning moments, knowing her day at the precinct would be filled with far less innocent concerns. As they pulled up to the school, other parents were dropping off their children. Rochelle noticed Ms. Harrow standing at the entrance, her thin lips pressed into what seemed to be a permanent frown as she monitored the arriving students. "Have a wonderful day, sweetheart," Rochelle said, giving Ava one last hug before watching her join the stream of children heading into the building. The morning at Jefferson Elementary started like any other. Ava sat straight in her chair, her notebook open and pencils ready as Ms. Harrow began taking attendance. The teacher's gaze lingered on Ava longer than necessary, her eyes narrowing slightly. During math lesson, Ava raised her hand to answer a question about fractions. Before she could speak, Ms. Harrow's sharp voice cut through the air. "Ava Gaines, please stand up." Confused, Ava rose slowly from her seat. 24 pairs of eyes turned to stare at her. "Your hair," Ms. Harrow said, her voice dripping with disapproval, "is in direct violation of our dress code." Ava's hand instinctively reached up to touch her braids. "But my mom—" "The dress code clearly states that hair must be neat and professional." Ms. Harrow's heels clicked against the linoleum as she approached Ava's desk. "This is neither." Tommy Jenkins snickered from 2 rows over. Sarah Wilson whispered something to Jessica Parker, and both girls giggled behind their hands. "My hair is neat," Ava said quietly, her voice trembling. "My mom did it special for picture day." Ms. Harrow's lips curved into a cold smile. "Well, perhaps your mother isn't familiar with proper school standards. This kind of elaborate styling is simply not appropriate for an educational setting." Heat crept up Ava's neck as tears threatened to spill from her eyes. She'd been so proud of her braids, had felt so pretty when she left home this morning. "Sit down," Ms. Harrow commanded. And see me after class about proper dress code compliance. The rest of the morning crawled by in a blur of humiliation. During recess, Ava didn't join her friends on the playground. Instead, she lingered near the classroom door, trying to make herself invisible. That's when she heard Ms. Harrow's voice drifting from the teacher's lounge. Honestly, these people should teach their kids how to look presentable, Ms. Harrow was saying. I mean, really, what kind of police captain lets their child come to school looking like that? Another teacher made a non-committal sound. It's about standards, Ms. Harrow continued. If we let them get away with this kind of thing, soon there won't be any standards at all. Ava's chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing all the air out of her lungs. She slipped away from the door and spent the rest of recess hiding in the girls' bathroom, trying not to cry. When the final bell rang, Ava's stomach churned as she watched her classmates file out. Ms. Harrow sat at her desk, methodically organizing papers, making Ava wait. Minutes ticked by. The hallway noises faded. One by one, the fluorescent lights in the corridor outside clicked off, leaving only the harsh brightness of the classroom. Ava sat rigid in her chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her braids, which had felt like a crown this morning, now felt heavy with shame. Through the windows, she could see the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the empty playground. Ms. Harrow continued to shuffle papers, deliberately ignoring Ava's presence. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. Tick, 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 each sound echoing like a hammer in the empty room. The classroom lights flickered, making Ava jump slightly in her seat. She could hear her own shallow breathing in the stillness. Her throat felt dry, and her palms were sweaty against her skirt. More corridor lights switched off, darkness creeping closer to the classroom door. The next morning, Ava's steps dragged as she entered Jefferson Elementary. Her braids felt too tight, too noticeable. She kept her eyes down, counting the floor tiles as she walked to her desk. The classroom was already half full, quiet whispers stopping as she passed. Ms. Harrow stood at the whiteboard, her back rigid. When she turned around, her eyes locked onto Ava, with an icy stare that made the girl shrink in her seat. The morning announcements crackled through the speakers, but Ava couldn't focus on the words. All she could think about was Ms. Harrow's gaze, sharp as broken glass. During math, Ava tried to make herself invisible. She didn't raise her hand, even though she knew all the answers. She copied problems from the board with robotic precision, her pencil scratching quietly against paper. The morning dragged on like thick molasses. Every time Ms. Harrow passed by her desk, Ava felt the temperature drop. The teacher's heels clicked against the floor, like a countdown to something terrible. Just before lunch, while they were working on reading comprehension, Ava felt one of her braids loosen slightly. She reached up to adjust it, trying to be discreet. The chalk in Ms. Harrow's hand snapped. "That's it." Ms. Harrow's voice cut through the classroom silence. She strode to the door, key ring jangling. The lock clicked shut with a sound that made Ava's stomach twist. "Class, sit quietly and continue reading." Ms. Harrow's shoes clicked across the floor to her desk. The drawer scraped open. This has gone on long enough. Ava's heart pounded as Ms. Harrow pulled out electric clippers. The black cord dangled like a snake. "These are from the nurse's office," Ms. Harrow announced, plugging them into the wall. "For hygiene emergencies." The clippers hummed to life with an angry buzz. "Ms. Harrow, please!" Ava's voice came out as a whisper. "This is for your own good." Ms. Harrow's hand clamped down on Ava's shoulder, pinning her to the chair. "We can't have you disrupting class anymore with this distraction." The first pass of the clippers felt like ice against Ava's scalp. Her braids, the ones her mother had woven with such care and love, fell to the floor in lifeless coils. Tears blurred her vision as she watched them drop. "Stop!" Ava's scream echoed off the walls. "Please stop!" But Ms. Harrow's hands kept moving, mechanical and merciless. The clippers buzzed louder, hungrier. Tears streamed down Ava's face, dripping onto her white uniform shirt. Tommy Jenkins let out a nervous laugh. Sarah Wilson covered her mouth with both hands. Marcus Johnson stared at his desk, his shoulders tight with tension. Through her tears, Ava caught a glimpse of movement at the classroom window. Mr. Hayes, the janitor, stood frozen in the hallway, his mop forgotten in his hands. Their eyes met for a brief moment, his wide with horror, hers pleading for help. But he remained rooted to the spot, watching helplessly as the clippers continued their cruel work. The buzzing seemed to go on forever. Ava felt the cold metal nick her scalp, once, twice, 3 times. Warm trickles of blood ran down behind her ears. Her beautiful braids lay scattered on the floor like fallen soldiers. When Ms. Harrow finally stepped back, she brushed hair clippings from her hands like they were nothing more than chalk dust. "There, now you look appropriate for school." Ava's scalp stung. She could feel air on places that had never been exposed before. Her head felt too light, too vulnerable. "You may go home for the day," Ms. Harrow said, her voice crisp and professional as if she hadn't just assaulted a child. "Come back tomorrow ready to learn without any distractions." Ava's legs shook as she stood. The room spun slightly. She grabbed her backpack with numb fingers, barely feeling its weight. The walk to the door felt endless. Every step echoed in the silent classroom. No one looked at her directly. Their eyes darted away whenever she passed, like she was something shameful. The hallway stretched before her like a tunnel. Mr. Hayes was gone, only his abandoned mop remaining as evidence that anyone had witnessed her humiliation. The empty corridor amplified every sound, her shuffling feet, her quiet sniffles, the brush of her backpack against the wall. Outside, the playground was empty except for a few kids at recess. They stopped their game when they saw her, pointing and whispering. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, burning her exposed scalp. Ava's backpack hung limp against her spine as she trudged across the schoolyard. Each step felt heavier than the last, like her feet were made of concrete. The weight of what had happened pressed down on her shoulders, making it hard to breathe. Whispers followed her like shadows. "Look at her head. What happened to her hair? Is she crying?" The school gates had never seemed so far away. Ava kept walking, one foot in front of the other, her eyes fixed on the sidewalk ahead. The sun overhead felt like a spotlight, exposing every raw patch on her scalp, every tear that rolled down her cheeks. A group of third graders stopped their jump rope game to stare as she passed. Their ropes slapped against the ground in a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. Slap, step, slap, step, each sound marking another moment of this endless walk home. The front door crashed open, slamming against the wall. Rochelle looked up from her paperwork spread across the kitchen table, startled by the sound. Her coffee mug slipped from her fingers as she saw Ava standing in the doorway, her body shaking with violent sobs. The ceramic shattered on the floor, dark liquid spreading like a stain. But Rochelle didn't even notice. Her eyes were fixed on her daughter's head, her beautiful braids gone, replaced by uneven patches of hair and angry red marks where the clippers had cut into her scalp. "Baby?" Rochelle's voice cracked. She crossed the room in 3 quick strides, dropping to her knees in front of Ava. "What happened? Who did this to you?" Ava couldn't speak through her sobs. Her whole body trembled as she fell into her mother's arms, fingers clutching desperately at Rochelle's police uniform. "Ms. H. Harrow," Ava finally choked out. She said my hair was wrong. She locked the door and—" Something dark, and dangerous unfurled in Rochelle's chest. Her arms tightened around Ava, feeling every shudder that ran through her daughter's small frame. The police captain's training, years of maintaining calm in crisis, melted away beneath a wave of pure maternal fury. "Stay here," Rochelle said, her voice low and steady despite the rage building inside her. She guided Ava to the couch, wrapping her in the soft throw blanket they kept there. "Mama's going to fix this." The drive to Jefferson Elementary took 7 minutes. Rochelle counted each one, her hands clenched white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Her badge caught the afternoon sun as she strode through the front doors, uniform crisp and authoritative. The click of her boots against the linoleum echoed like gunshots. She didn't stop at the front office, didn't sign in, didn't wait for permission. The hallway stretched before her as she marched toward room 203, where she knew Ms. Harrow would be teaching her afternoon class. The door flew open under her hand. 25 pairs of eyes snapped to attention as she entered, including Linda Harrow's, which widened briefly before narrowing in recognition. "Ms. Harrow." Rochelle's voice was arctic. "We need to discuss what you did to my daughter." Harrow's lips tightened into a thin line. "Captain Gaines, I'm in the middle of a lesson. If you'd like to schedule a parent-teacher conference?" "No." The word cracked like a whip. "We're doing this now. You want to explain to me why my 10-year-old daughter came home with her scalp bleeding? Why you thought you had the right to put your hands on my child?" Students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked down at their desks. Others watched with wide eyes as their teacher squared off against the uniformed police captain. "Your daughter's hair was unkempt and posed a hygiene issue," Harrow said, her voice dripping with false concern. "As her teacher, I have a responsibility." "A responsibility?" Rochelle's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "You assaulted a child. You locked her in this room and traumatized her in front of her classmates. Now, see here," Harrow started, but footsteps in the hallway cut her off. Principal Cooper appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of practiced concern. "Captain Gaines, please. This situation is being handled through proper channels." "Proper channels?" Rochelle turned on him, her fury finding a new target. "Like the proper channels that let this woman terrorize my daughter? That let her bring clippers to school and attack a child?" Cooper raised his hands in a placating gesture. "If we could just step into my office—" "No." Rochelle's voice carried through the walls. "We're doing this right here, where it happened, where everyone can see exactly what kind of people are teaching their children." Harrow's smirk hadn't fully faded. She stood behind her desk like it was a shield, chin lifted in defiance. "I was simply enforcing school policy. If certain students can't maintain appropriate standards—" The sound of heavy boots interrupted her. Officer Tom Griggs appeared, his hand already on his belt as he assessed the situation. His eyes flicked between Rochelle's captain's uniform and her dark skin, uncertainty crossing his features. "Ma'am," he said, stepping between Rochelle and Harrow's desk, "I'm going to need you to come with me." "Stand down, Officer Griggs." Rochelle's voice carried the full weight of her rank. "This is far above your pay grade." But Griggs moved closer, his body language aggressive. "Captain or not, you're disrupting school property. I need you to leave the premises." The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. Students watched with held breath as the two officers faced each other, neither backing down. "You really want to do this?" Rochelle asked quietly. "You want to be the one who defends what she did to my baby?" Griggs's jaw tightened. His hand hadn't left his belt. "Ma'am, final warning." Rochelle looked past him to where Harrow stood, still wearing that satisfied smile. She memorized every detail of the woman's face, every line of her smug expression. "Ava!" she called out. "Come here, baby." Her daughter appeared in the doorway, still wrapped in the throw blanket from home. Her eyes were red and swollen, her shaved head making her look impossibly small. Rochelle walked past Griggs like he wasn't there, scooping Ava into her arms. Her daughter buried her face in her neck, fingers clutching at her uniform. The hallway seemed to hold its breath as they walked out. Whispers followed them like ripples in a pond. Teachers peeked out of doorways. Students pressed against windows. Just before they reached the exit, Rochelle paused. Her voice was quiet but carried clearly in the silent corridor. They just picked the wrong mother. The morning sun hadn't yet risen when the first news van pulled up outside Jefferson Elementary. By 7 a.m., the street was lined with reporters clutching coffee cups, their camera crews setting up equipment in the pale dawn light. Rochelle watched the circus unfold from her kitchen window, jaw clenched tight. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since last night. Texts, calls, social media notifications piling up like evidence in a case she couldn't crack. "Look at this," she muttered, holding up her phone. A local news website's headline read, "School Hygiene Incident Sparks Controversy." Like they couldn't even name what had really happened. Ava sat quietly at the kitchen table, wearing her favorite purple beanie pulled low over her ears. She pushed cereal around her bowl, not eating. Dark circles shadowed her eyes from a night of broken sleep. "You don't have to go today," Rochelle said softly. "We can stay home." Ava shook her head. "I don't want to hide." Pride and heartache warred in Rochelle's chest. She crossed the room and pressed a kiss to the top of Ava's covered head. By 9 a.m., the district's formal apology arrived via email. Rochelle read it standing in her office at the precinct, her coffee growing cold beside her. "We deeply regret the miscommunication that led to this unfortunate incident," the statement began. Rochelle's finger tightened on her mouse. "Steps are being taken to ensure better understanding of our policies moving forward." Her phone rang. Reverend Sims. "You saw it?" he asked without preamble. "Miscommunication." Rochelle spat the word. "They're calling assault a miscommunication." "They're scared," Sims said. "The story's spreading. My phone's been ringing nonstop. CNN, MSNBC, everyone wants to know what happened. What happened is that woman attacked my daughter, and they're covering it up." Rochelle paced her small office. "Temporary leave? She should be in handcuffs." "There's a press conference at noon," Sims told her. "Superintendent Marlowe's making a statement. We need to be there." The press conference was held on the front steps of the school district office. Superintendent Ellen Marlowe stood at a podium, her pearl necklace gleaming under the harsh sunlight. Camera shutters clicked like insects. "This was an isolated incident," Marlowe declared, her voice smooth as polished marble. "Jefferson Elementary has always prided itself on diversity and inclusion. Ms. Harrow has been placed on temporary leave while we conduct a thorough investigation." Reporters shouted questions. Marlowe pointed to a young white woman near the front. "Isn't this just a case of strict enforcement of dress code policy?" the reporter asked. Rochelle's hands balled into fists. She stood at the back of the crowd, Reverend Sims beside her like a steadying anchor. "The district is reviewing all policies to ensure they're applied fairly," Marlowe answered with a practiced smile. "We're committed to creating an environment where all students feel welcome." "What about the allegations of racial targeting?" a black reporter called out. Marlowe's smile tightened. "We take all such allegations seriously. However, let's not inflame tensions by jumping to conclusions." Reverend Sims stepped forward, his deep voice carrying over the crowd. "When a black child is physically assaulted in school, that's not tension. That's violence. And it needs to be named." Cameras swung toward him. Marlowe's perfectly composed expression cracked for just a moment. "Reverend Sims," she acknowledged stiffly. "We appreciate your community's concerns. Rest assured, appropriate action is being taken." "Appropriate action would be criminal charges," Rochelle said, loud enough to be heard. Heads turned. Recognition flickered across faces. The police captain mother, still in uniform. The press conference dissolved into chaos after that. Marlowe retreated inside while reporters swarmed around Rochelle and Reverend Sims. That night, Rochelle sat on the edge of Ava's bed, stroking her daughter's back as she finally drifted to sleep. The house was quiet except for the distant sound of crickets through the open window. The peace lasted exactly 27 minutes. Ava's scream tore through the darkness like a knife. Rochelle burst into her room to find her daughter thrashing against her sheets, hands clapped over her ears. "Make it stop!" Ava cried. "The buzzing! Make it stop!" Rochelle gathered her into her arms, rocking gently. "It's okay, baby. It's just a dream. You're safe. Mama's got you." Slowly, Ava's breathing steadied. Her small hands clutched Rochelle's nightshirt. "I can still hear it," she whispered. "Every time I close my eyes." "I know, baby." Rochelle's voice was thick with tears she refused to let fall. "But I promise you, they're going to pay for what they did. Every single one of them." They sat together in the darkness, mother and daughter holding each other against the night. The clock on Ava's bedside table blinked 11:42 p.m. when Rochelle's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Captain Gaines!" "They think they destroyed it," a raspy voice whispered. Static crackled on the line. "But I saw everything. There's footage." Rochelle sat up straighter, careful not to disturb Ava, who had finally fallen back asleep. "Who is this?" "Check the janitor's office tomorrow," the voice continued, ignoring her question. "Behind the supply shelf. They deleted it from the system, but..." The line went dead. Dawn painted Jefferson Elementary in shades of gray as Rochelle pulled into the back lot, parking behind the dumpsters. Her hands trembled slightly as she cut the engine. The smell of rotting cafeteria food hung thick in the morning air. A figure emerged from behind the metal containers, Darnell Hayes, the school janitor. His shoulders hunched forward, eyes darting around like a cornered animal. "Captain Gaines?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "Thank you for coming." Rochelle stepped closer, keeping her voice low. "You called me last night?" Darnell nodded, wringing his hands. His uniform was wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes suggesting a sleepless night. "I saw everything they're trying to hide." "Tell me," Rochelle said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I was cleaning the hallway outside room 204. Darnell's words tumbled out in a rush. "Heard screaming. When I looked through the window." He swallowed hard. "Ms. Harrow had your daughter cornered. She was smiling, Captain. Smiling while she did it." Rochelle's stomach churned. "The security cameras?" "There's one right outside that classroom. Caught everything." His hands shook harder. "But yesterday afternoon, IT guys showed up. Said they had orders to update the system. When they left, that footage was gone." "Who gave the order?" "Don't know for sure. But one of them mentioned something about the chief deputy's office on the phone." Rochelle's blood ran cold. Chief Deputy Lawrence Miles, her direct superior. The man who'd built his career on being untouchable. "I need proof," she said. "That's why I called you." Darnell glanced over his shoulder. "They wiped the main system, but backups are stored on a separate server for 48 hours. If you have clearance..." "I do." Rochelle checked her watch. "The IT department opens at 8. I'll handle it from here." "Captain?" Darnell caught her arm as she turned to leave. "Be careful. Ms. Harrow. She's connected. Her brother's on the school board. And her husband. Works internal affairs," Rochelle finished. The pieces were falling into place. Back at the precinct, Rochelle logged into the police network. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing the school's security system through the department's back door. The deletion order was there, buried under layers of bureaucratic paperwork, but clear as day. From L. Miles, UCity PD.gov to It support Jefferson Elm EDU subject. Security system maintenance. Priority urgent. Her office door opened. She quickly minimized the screen. Captain Gaines, Chief Deputy Miles, stood in the doorway, his smile not reaching his eyes. Got a minute? Of course, sir. Rochelle kept her face neutral as he closed the door. Miles settled into the chair across from her desk, straightening his perfectly pressed tie. Quite a situation at Jefferson Elementary. Yes, sir. Nasty business. He shook his head. But best handled internally, don't you think? School district has their procedures. A crime was committed against my daughter, Rochelle said carefully. Now. Miles's smile turned patronizing. Let's not get emotional. This is clearly a personal matter, and we both know mixing family with the job can lead to unfortunate decisions. With all due respect, sir, assault isn't a personal matter. Assault? He laughed softly. Come now, Rochelle. A teacher enforcing dress code? Hardly seems worth derailing your career over. The threat hung in the air between them. You ordered the security footage deleted, she said flatly. His smile vanished. Careful, Captain. Very careful. You've worked hard to get where you are. First black woman to lead this precinct. That's quite an achievement. Would be a shame to throw it all away over a misunderstanding. Is that what this is? What it is, Miles stood slowly, is over. The school board has handled it. The media cycle will move on, and you'll remember where your loyalties lie. He paused at the door. For your own good. After he left, Rochelle sat motionless, staring at her computer screen. The deletion order seemed to mock her. Behind it lay something bigger, a web of connections between the school board, the police department, and God knew what else. The drive home felt endless. Rain started falling, fat drops splattering against her windshield. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. They're hiding something, she muttered, watching lightning split the darkening sky. The pieces swirled in her mind. Harrow's brother on the school board, her husband in internal affairs, Miles's involvement in the cover-up. This wasn't just about Ava anymore. This was about power, about systems protecting their own. Thunder rumbled overhead as Rochelle pulled into her driveway. The rain was falling harder now, drumming against her car roof like angry fists. Through her rain-streaked window, she could see Ava's bedroom light on. Her daughter's silhouette at the window, still wearing that purple beanie, still trying to be brave. The neon sign of Pete's all-night diner buzzed and flickered in the rain. At 11 p.m., the place was nearly empty. Just a sleepy waitress refilling coffee cups and an old man reading yesterday's paper. Rochelle slid into a worn vinyl booth, her uniform still damp from the storm. Across from her sat Clara Benson, dark circles under her eyes, suggesting long nights chasing leads. The journalist's laptop hummed quietly between them. "Thanks for meeting me," Rochelle said, keeping her voice low. Clara nodded, pushing her wire-rimmed glasses up her nose. "Your message said it was urgent." The waitress approached. "Coffee?" "Please," they said in unison. Once the waitress moved away, Rochelle reached into her jacket pocket. The flash drive felt heavy in her palm, small but loaded with dynamite. She slid it across the sticky tabletop. Metadata from Jefferson Elementary's security system. Proof the footage existed before it was wiped. Clara picked up the drive, turning it over in her hands. "How did you get this?" "Let's just say I still have friends in IT." Rochelle wrapped her hands around the coffee mug, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. "But there's more. I've been digging. I'm listening." Clara pulled out a small notebook, pen poised. Paul Harrow, Linda Harrow's brother, sits on the school board, has for 8 years. He chairs the disciplinary committee. Clara's pen scratched across the paper. The same committee that would review complaints against teachers? Exactly. Rochelle leaned forward. And her husband, Michael Harrow? Works Internal Affairs at my precinct. The unit investigating your conduct after the confrontation at school. One big happy family. Rochelle's smile was bitter. Clara set down her pen. This goes deeper than one racist teacher, doesn't it? Much deeper. Chief Deputy Miles personally ordered that footage deleted. Why would someone at his level get involved in a school disciplinary issue? Thunder rolled outside as they sat in silence, digesting the implications. The old man with the newspaper shuffled out, leaving them alone except for the waitress. "I'll need more than metadata to run this story," Clara said finally. "Hard evidence, witnesses." Rochelle's phone buzzed. Darnell Hayes' number flashed on the screen. "Captain?" His voice shook. "There's a car. Been following me since I left work." Rochelle sat up straighter. "Where are you?" "Almost home. Dark sedan, no plates. Every turn I make, they make. Get inside, lock your doors. I'm on my way." Clara was already gathering her things. "Go. I'll start digging into the school board's financial records. See what shakes loose." "Be careful," Rochelle warned. "These people—" "I know." Clara's eyes were hard. "I've brought down corrupt officials before. Just get your witness somewhere safe." The rain had settled into a steady drizzle by the time Rochelle reached Darnell's small house on Oak Street. No sign of the sedan, but the janitor's hands still trembled as he let her in. "They stayed out there for 20 minutes, he said, pacing his living room. "Just sitting there, watching. Did you see the driver?" "Too dark." Darnell stopped at the window, peering through the blinds. "This is about the footage, isn't it? They know I saw." "I won't let anything happen to you," Rochelle promised. "We'll set up surveillance, get you protection." "I got a teenage son to think about," Darnell interrupted. "Can't afford to lose this job." "Can't afford to die, either." Rochelle's phone buzzed again, a text from Clara. "Found something. Board finances don't add up. Call tomorrow." "Stay with your sister in Millbrook for a few days," Rochelle told Darnell. "Just until we sort this out." He nodded slowly. "What about you? They know you're investigating." "I can handle myself." But driving home, every shadow made her pulse quicken. Every parked car looked suspicious. The weight of what they were uncovering pressed down on her chest like a stone. It was past midnight when she finally pulled into her driveway. The house was dark except for Ava's nightlight glowing softly through her window. Rochelle found her daughter still awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed. "Can't sleep?" Rochelle sat beside her, smoothing the purple beanie Ava refused to take off. "Had the dream again." Ava's voice was small. "About the Clippers." "Come here, baby." Rochelle pulled her close, breathing in the sweet smell of her shampoo. "Nobody's going to hurt you again. I promise." "Are you going to catch the bad people?" "Yes." Rochelle's voice was firm. "All of them." She tucked Ava in, making sure her favorite stuffed elephant was close by. "Try to sleep now. You're safe. Love you, Mom." "Love you too, baby." Rochelle kissed her forehead and turned out the light. In the hallway she paused, listening to the quiet house. Everything seemed peaceful, normal. But somewhere out there, a dark sedan was idling in the shadows, its headlights off, watching and waiting. The precinct buzzed with morning activity as Rochelle pushed through the heavy glass doors. Something felt off immediately. Faces that usually greeted her with warm smiles now avoided eye contact. Conversations died mid-sentence as she passed. Walking to the locker room, her boots echoed against the polished floor. The familiar rhythm felt different today, more isolated. She rounded the corner and stopped dead. There it was, sprawled across her locker in angry red marker. "Race Card Cop." The letters dripped slightly, still fresh. Her hand trembled as she traced the edge of one letter, red ink coming away on her fingertip. Officer Martinez, arranging files nearby, quickly gathered her things and left without a word. Rochelle opened her locker, the metal door creaking louder than usual in the empty room. Inside, her family photo had been turned face down. She righted it, touching Ava's smiling face through the glass. Captain Gaines. Officer Tom Watson stood in the doorway, his usual friendly demeanor replaced with stiff formality. Chief Deputy Miles wants to see you. Now. The walk to Miles's office felt like a march to execution. Every desk she passed fell silent. Even Rodriguez, her partner of 3 years, suddenly became fascinated with his computer screen. Chief Deputy Miles sat behind his massive oak desk, reading glasses perched on his nose as he studied a file. He didn't look up when she entered. "Sit down, Captain." Rochelle remained standing. "I prefer to stand, sir." He finally looked up, removing his glasses with deliberate slowness. "This isn't a request." She sat, spine straight, hands folded in her lap. The leather chair creaked under her. "Do you know why you're here?" Miles leaned back, studying her. "No, sir." He slid a folder across the desk. "Unauthorized access of police databases. Multiple searches on civilian personnel. School board members. Their families." His voice hardened. "Internal affairs officers. I was investigating a crime against my daughter. Your daughter's situation was handled through proper channels." Miles cut her off. "The teacher was disciplined. The school apologized. But you couldn't let it go, could you? My daughter was assaulted. This isn't about your daughter anymore." He stood, towering over her. "This is about you abusing your position for a personal vendetta." Rochelle's hands clenched in her lap. "Sir, with respect, your badge and gun." He held out his hand. "Pending investigation." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "For how long?" "Until Internal Affairs completes their review." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Could be weeks. Could be months." Her fingers trembled as she unclipped her badge. The metal felt cold, lifeless. 15 years of service, reduced to this moment. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly. "No, Captain." He dropped her badge into his desk drawer. "You did." The drive home was a blur. Rain started falling again, matching her mood. Her phone buzzed. A text from Clara. "Board financial records show suspicious transfers. Need to meet." She pulled into her driveway just as Ava's school bus stopped at the corner. Her daughter walked slowly toward the house, shoulders slumped, clutching papers to her chest. "Baby?" Rochelle met her at the door. "What's wrong?" Wordlessly, Ava handed over her report card. Straight A's in every subject, except one. Behavior. F. "Mrs. Peterson says I'm disruptive," Ava whispered, "but I haven't done anything. I just sit quiet like you told me." Rochelle scanned the comments section. Student shows defiant attitude. Refuses to participate. Negative influence on other students. Who is Mrs. Peterson? Ms. Harrow's friend. They eat lunch together. Of course. Harrow's influence, spreading like poison through the school. Other teachers carrying out her vendetta. Go do your homework, baby. Rochelle kissed her daughter's forehead. This isn't your fault. Later that night, after Ava was asleep, Rochelle sat alone in her dark living room. Her suspended badge lay on the coffee table, moonlight catching the metal. Outside, rain tapped against the windows like nervous fingers. She picked up the badge, its familiar weight now strange in her hand. The system she'd dedicated her life to had turned against her daughter. If they won't protect my daughter, she whispered into the darkness, I'll do it myself. Her phone lit up. Another text from Clara. Meeting tomorrow. 7 a.m. Same diner. Big breakthrough. Rochelle set down her badge and reached for her laptop. If she couldn't use police resources anymore, she'd find another way. The screen's blue light illuminated her face as she began typing, documenting everything. Every incident, every connection, every suspicious coincidence. In Ava's room, The nightlight cast star-shaped shadows on the ceiling. Her daughter slept fitfully, still wearing her purple beanie. The sight strengthened Rochelle's resolve. They thought suspending her would shut her up, make her back down. But they didn't understand. This was never about the badge. This was about a mother protecting her child. And she was just getting started. The rain continued falling, washing away another day, but not the anger, not the determination. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new revelations. For now, Rochelle kept typing, building her case in the darkness, piece by piece. Clara's article hit the internet at exactly midnight. By dawn, it had spread like wildfire across social media. The headline blazed across screens. Corruption and cover-ups. The real story behind Jefferson Elementary's hair-cutting incident. Rochelle sat at her kitchen table, coffee growing cold, as she scrolled through the explosive report. Clara had connected every dot. Financial records showing Paul Harrow's company receiving inflated contracts for diversity training that never happened. Internal affairs cases mysteriously disappearing when Linda Harrow's husband handled them. A pattern of complaints from black parents buried under bureaucratic paperwork. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. The story was everywhere. By 8 a.m., protesters had gathered outside Jefferson Elementary. Their signs bobbed in the morning light. Justice for Ava, and Stop Protecting Racists, and Fire Them All, Frau. Rochelle watched the live coverage on her laptop. The crowd kept growing. Parents, students, community members. Some held pictures of Ava's shaved head. Others carried printouts of Clara's article. "Mom!" Ava appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas. "Why are all those people at my school?" "They're standing up for what's right, baby." Rochelle pulled her daughter close. "Sometimes that's what it takes." The protest spread to City Hall by noon. Local news crews jostled for position as speakers took turns at the microphone. Reverend Sims's voice boomed through the speakers. "We demand accountability. We demand justice." Rochelle's phone rang. "Clara." "They're trying to shut us down," Clara said without preamble. Her voice was tight with anger. "The newspaper just got hit with a cease and desist. They're calling it defamation. But everything in the article is true. Truth doesn't matter when they have expensive lawyers." Clara sighed. "My editor's already talking about retracting it." "They can't. It gets worse. Check your email." Rochelle opened her inbox. There it was, a press release from the school board attacking Clara's credibility. They dug up a minor correction from one of her stories 3 years ago, twisting it into evidence of repeated false reporting. Social media exploded, with coordinated posts calling the article fake news. Bot accounts spread doctored screenshots claiming Clara had fabricated quotes. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Darnell. "They burned it." His voice shook. "My car. It's gone." Rochelle gripped the phone tighter. "Are you okay?" "I was inside when it happened. Heard the glass break, then whoosh." He paused. "My son could have been in there." "Darnell, we need to—" "I'm done." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I got kids to think about." The line went dead. Rochelle's hands trembled as she set down the phone. Everything was unraveling. She switched on the TV, hoping for better news. Instead, there was Linda Harrow's face filling the screen. She sat perched on a morning show couch, tissues clutched in her manicured hands. "I just wanted to help," Harrow sniffled, dabbing at dry eyes. "These children need structure, guidance. Sometimes tough love is necessary." The sympathetic host nodded. "And now you're receiving death threats?" "It's been terrible." Harrow's voice quavered perfectly. "My family, my reputation. All because I tried to maintain proper standards." The camera zoomed in on her face as tears finally appeared. "That poor girl. I only wanted what was best for her. Rochelle's coffee mug shattered against the wall. Mom? Ava appeared again, startled by the noise. Rochelle quickly turned off the TV. It's okay, baby. Just dropped something. But her hands were still shaking with rage. On her phone, notifications kept coming. The article being discredited, protesters being dispersed, Harrow's interview going viral with sympathetic comments. No, Rochelle said, her voice cold and hard as steel. Now, I'm coming for you. She looked at the scattered pieces of her coffee mug on the floor. Like her faith in the system, it lay in sharp, broken pieces. But unlike the mug, this wasn't over. Outside, the rain had started again, drumming against the windows. Ava sat at the kitchen table starting her homework. Her purple beanie was pulled low, hiding the still uneven patches where her hair was slowly growing back. Rochelle watched her daughter, her beautiful, brave girl who still went to school every day despite everything, who still tried her best even when teachers marked her down unfairly, who still held her head high even when classmates whispered. The TV in the other room continued playing Harrow's interview. Her fake tears and practiced sympathy carried through the walls like poison. Rochelle's phone lit up with another text from Clara. Don't give up. I'm still digging. The broken pieces of the mug caught the kitchen light, scattering it like tiny mirrors. Each shard reflected a different angle of the truth, just like each piece of evidence they'd gathered showed another facet of the corruption. Harrow thought she'd won, thought her crocodile tears and powerful connections would protect her, thought she could play the victim while destroying a little girl's dignity. But she didn't understand what she was dealing with, didn't understand that some mothers don't stop, don't back down, don't give up until justice is served. The subpoena arrived on a Tuesday morning, crisp white paper that felt like ice in Rochelle's hands. Internal Affairs, Misconduct Investigation, Mandatory Appearance. The words blurred as she read them again and again. Ava watched from across the breakfast table, her spoon frozen halfway to her mouth. What's wrong, Mom? Nothing, baby. Rochelle folded the paper carefully, tucking it into her jacket pocket. Just some work stuff. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking as she drove Ava to school. She'd been expecting this, waiting for the system to bare its teeth. The hearing was scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. No time to prepare. No time to gather defense. That was deliberate, of course. She called Clara from the parking lot. They're making their move, Rochelle said, watching parents hurry their children into Jefferson Elementary. Some still carried protest signs, but the crowd was much smaller now. Internal Affairs, hearing tomorrow. It's a trap, Clara's voice crackled through the speaker. They'll try to discredit you officially. I know. Rochelle watched a teacher who looked like Linda Harrow's twin shepherd her class inside. But if I don't show, they'll say I'm guilty. Be careful. They'll record everything. Rochelle's laugh was bitter. Good. So will I. That night, she laid out her dress uniform, pressed sharp enough to cut paper. Her badge caught the lamplight, throwing shadows on the wall. Suspended or not, she was still Captain Rochelle Gaines. They couldn't take that away. The morning of the hearing dawned gray and humid. The police headquarters loomed like a fortress of glass and steel. Rochelle straightened her collar, checked the tiny recorder hidden in her pocket, and walked through the front doors. The conference room was packed. Chief Deputy Miles sat at the head of the long table, Mayor Briggs beside him. The Internal Affairs panel lined one side, all white faces, all stern expressions. Linda Harrow's husband among them, smirking slightly. Captain Gaines. Miles gestured to the single chair facing them all. Please, be seated. Rochelle sat, spine straight as a ruler. Her phone buzzed, a text from Clara. We're ready if you need backup. This hearing, Miles began, shuffling papers importantly, concerns serious allegations of misconduct, misuse of police resources, unauthorized access to confidential records, and actions detrimental to public trust. Mayor Briggs leaned forward, his expensive suit creasing perfectly. "We're very concerned about the damage to community relations, Captain. Your personal crusade has caused significant disruption." "My personal crusade?" Rochelle's voice could have frozen flame. "You mean seeking justice for my daughter?" "Your daughter's situation was handled appropriately by the school district," Miles cut in. "Your subsequent actions, however, handled appropriately." Rochelle's laugh made several panel members flinch. "A teacher assaulted my child. The school covered it up. The system protected the perpetrator. And you're investigating me? Watch your tone, Captain." Miles's smile was razor-thin. "Remember who you're speaking to." "Oh, I know exactly who I'm speaking to." Rochelle leaned forward. "I'm speaking to the men who helped hide security footage, who buried complaints from black parents, who let racism flourish because it was convenient." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mayor Briggs adjusted his tie nervously. "These are serious accusations," Miles said softly. His eyes glittered with malice. "But you think anyone will believe a black woman over the system that made her?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Rochelle felt the recorder in her pocket, solid as truth. "The system didn't make me," she replied, each word precise as a bullet. "I made it to captain despite the system. Despite men like you who think power means never facing consequences." "Careful, Captain." Mayor Briggs's voice was silk over steel. "Your pension is at stake. Your future. Think about your daughter." "I am thinking about my daughter." Rochelle stood slowly, commanding the room. "I'm thinking about every black child who faces people like Linda Harrow. Every parent who gets told to stay quiet. Every voice that gets silenced because it's inconvenient." "Sit down, Captain," Miles barked. "This hearing isn't finished." "No," Rochelle agreed. "It's just beginning. Because now we have proof of exactly who you are and what you're willing to do to keep power." She turned to leave, but Miles's voice stopped her. "If you walk out that door," he said, "you'll never wear that badge again." Rochelle paused, hand on the doorknob. Maybe it's time for a new badge, one that actually stands for justice. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. In the hallway, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Her phone was already in her hand, Clara's number on the screen. "I've got it," she said quietly. "The whole conversation. Miles, Briggs, all of it." "Send it now," Clara replied, "before they can stop you." Rochelle's fingers moved swiftly, attaching the audio file. "If I go down," she said, "play it loud enough for the world to hear." The file uploaded with a soft chime. Down the hall, she could hear voices rising in the conference room. Angry, panicked voices. They'd realize soon what she'd done. But it was too late. The truth was out there now, recorded in their own words. No tears, no lawyers, no political connections could erase it. 2 days after the hearing, Rochelle's phone exploded with notifications. The security footage, long thought destroyed, had surfaced online. Someone had uploaded it to every major social media platform simultaneously. The video was crystal clear. Linda Harrow's face twisted with contempt as she circled Ava like a predator. The electric clippers hummed menacingly. Students' faces showed horror, discomfort, and fear. The raw cruelty was undeniable. "Mom!" Ava called from the living room. "We're on TV!" Every news channel carried the story. Analysts dissected the footage frame by frame. They zoomed in on Harrow's calculated movements, the way she'd positioned Ava to face her classmates. The deliberate humiliation was obvious to everyone. Rochelle's phone rang. "Clara." "It's everywhere," the journalist said, breathless. "Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. They can't take it down fast enough. People are sharing it faster than they can delete it. Any idea who leaked it? Anonymous source. But get this. There's more. The footage shows Miles entering the school that afternoon. He went straight to the IT office. Rochelle's hand tightened on the phone. He supervised the deletion himself? Exactly. And I've got the financial records to prove why. The school board's been running fake diversity programs for years. Millions in taxpayer money, vanishing into private accounts. Guess who signed off on all of it? Miles. And Mayor Briggs. The whole system's rotten, Rochelle. And now everyone can see it. Outside, car horns blared. Rochelle went to the window. A crowd had gathered at the end of her street. Parents, students, community members. They carried signs. Justice for Ava and Black Hair Matters and Fire them all. Her doorbell rang. More reporters. She'd stopped answering yesterday. The police scanner crackled. All units respond to Jefferson Elementary. Crowd control needed. Rochelle turned on the TV. Hundreds of people surrounded the school, their anger visible even through the helicopter camera feed. National news vans lined the streets. Parents demanded answers. Teachers called in sick en masse. Her phone buzzed again. A text from the interim police chief. Your suspension is temporarily lifted. We need all hands on deck. Rochelle laughed bitterly. Now they needed her. Another text arrived, this one from Clara. Turn on Channel 7 now. The screen showed Chief Deputy Miles trying to push through reporters outside police headquarters. His usual composure had cracked. Sweat stained his collar. Chief Deputy, a reporter thrust a microphone forward. Can you explain these bank transfers from the school board's diversity initiative? No comment. Miles shoved past. Is it true you personally ordered the deletion of security footage? What about the complaints from other black students? Did Mayor Briggs know about the embezzlement? Miles broke into a run, diving into a waiting car. The camera caught his panic perfectly. Rochelle's phone rang again. The interim chief, this time. Captain Gaines, he said. We need you at the command center. This situation's getting out of hand. Is it? Rochelle watched another wave of protesters join the crowd outside her house. Or is justice finally getting its day? Please, Captain. You're the only one they might listen to. She considered for a moment. I'll come, but on one condition, I speak freely. No script, no prepared statement. Anything you want? Just hurry. Rochelle hung up and turned to Ava, who sat curled on the couch, watching the chaos unfold on TV. Ready to go out there, baby? Ava's eyes were wide but unafraid. Will they be mad at us? No, sweetheart. Rochelle smoothed her daughter's growing hair. They're mad at the people who hurt you. They're here to make sure it never happens again. They stepped outside together. The crowd noticed immediately. A cheer went up, not angry, but supportive. Signs waved. Phones recorded. Parents pushed forward, sharing stories of their own children's mistreatment. Rochelle's police radio crackled. Units reported crowds at the mayor's office, the school board, police headquarters. The city had awakened. Clara's latest article dropped online. Exposed: How Police Chief and Mayor Profited from School Discrimination. The evidence was damning. Bank statements, emails, deleted complaints meticulously restored. Miles's car was spotted heading for the airport. State police were already waiting. Downtown, the interim chief had set up a podium. News cameras gathered. Rochelle drove there slowly, Ava holding her hand in the passenger seat. The crowd parted for them. Reporters called questions. Rochelle guided Ava through the chaos, up to the podium. The interim chief stepped back, yielding the microphone. Silence fell. 2 days ago, Rochelle began, they tried to silence me. They thought a badge was more important than justice. They were wrong. Cheers erupted. My daughter was assaulted because they thought no one would care. Because they thought we'd stay quiet. Because a system built on racism only works if we accept it. More cheers. Ava squeezed her hand. But we see it now. All of it. The cruelty. The corruption. The lies they told to keep power. And we're not accepting it anymore. The crowd roared. Cameras flashed. In the distance, sirens wailed as more state police units converged on the airport. Rochelle looked down at Ava, seeing strength in her daughter's eyes. "They see you now, baby," she whispered, holding her close. "They finally see you." The chant started slowly, then built like thunder. "Ava! Ava! Ava!" Rochelle's phone vibrated just as she was leaving the podium. Miles's number. She almost declined the call, but something made her answer. Captain Gaines. His voice was unnaturally calm. "We need to talk. Just you and me." "There's nothing to discuss, Chief. I want to make this right." He paused. "For Ava's sake. Meet me at the old conference center on Pine Street. 1 hour." Rochelle's instincts screamed trap, but this might be her only chance to get a full confession. "Fine, 1 hour." She called Clara immediately. "I need a wire. Fast." 20 minutes later, they met in a pharmacy parking lot. Clara handed over a small recording device and showed her how to hide it. "Be careful," Clara warned. "He's desperate. That makes him dangerous." Rochelle nodded, tucking the wire beneath her jacket. She touched her police badge. Reinstated just hours ago. Its weight felt different now. The old conference center loomed gray and empty, its parking lot deserted except for Miles's black SUV. Rochelle parked facing the exit, checking her phone's emergency signal was active. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed weakly. Her footsteps echoed through vacant halls that smelled of dust and abandonment. She found Miles in room 204, standing at a window that overlooked the city. "Thanks for coming." He didn't turn around. "Quite a show you put on today." "Truth usually is." "Truth?" Now he faced her, smiling that politician's smile. "You want truth? Here's some. You're not the first black officer to cause trouble, just the loudest." "This isn't about me." "No?" He stepped closer. "Then why make it personal? Why turn a simple disciplinary issue into a circus?" "Simple?" Rochelle's anger flared. "They assaulted my daughter. Policy violations happen. Smart people know when to let things go." "Like you let things go? For a price?" His smile tightened. "Careful, Captain. How much did the school board pay you, Miles? To delete evidence? To bury complaints? You don't understand how things work." He paced now, agitated. "These programs need funding. Funding needs good statistics. Bad publicity means budget cuts. So you covered up racism for money?" "I maintained order." His composure cracked. "You think anyone cares about a few disciplinary actions? The funds we secured helped hundreds of students, while terrorizing others. Some kids need discipline, structure. Their parents don't provide it. So, their parents?" Rochelle pressed. "You mean black parents?" "Don't twist my words." But he was talking faster now, defensive. "The board understands how to handle these situations. A few thousand here and there ensures everyone stays happy. Everyone except the children you hurt. Sacrifices for the greater good." He ran a hand through his hair. "The money builds programs, creates opportunities. What's a few incidents compared to millions in funding?" "Those incidents were children, Miles. My daughter—" "Your daughter should have followed the rules." He slammed his hand on a desk. "Like you should have. We gave you everything. Position, power, respect. And you threw it away for what? Justice?" Rochelle stepped closer, voice steady. "How many others? How many children did you silence?" "Dozens," he laughed bitterly. "Maybe hundreds, all neatly filed away. 5,000 per incident, standard rate. 10,000 for the really bad ones." His eyes narrowed. Yours would have been 20. Special circumstances. A floorboard creaked behind her. Miles's eyes flicked to her jacket, where the wire made a slight bulge. His face transformed. You're wearing a wire. Not a question. Rochelle backed toward the door. It's over, Miles. He lunged with surprising speed, grabbing for her throat. They crashed into a stack of chairs. Rochelle's police training kicked in. She blocked, twisted, broke free. But Miles was bigger, stronger, driven by desperation. He caught her jacket, tearing at it, trying to reach the recording device. The door burst open. Darnell Hayes charged in, swinging his janitor's mop like a staff. The metal handle caught Miles in the ribs, sending him stumbling. "Run!" Darnell shouted. Rochelle scrambled up, clutching the wire secure against her chest. Miles recovered, shoving Darnell aside, reaching for her again. She ducked under his grasp and drove her knee up. Hard. Miles doubled over, wheezing. Darnell grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. They ran through dark hallways, footsteps thundering behind them. Miles's curses echoed off empty walls. Rochelle's heart pounded, but the recording device was safe. They burst into the parking lot just as police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called it in, probably Clara, monitoring from nearby. "Get in!" Rochelle yelled to Darnell, jumping into her car. The engine roared to life. Miles staggered out the front door, face contorted with rage. He raised something in his hand, a gun. Rochelle floored the accelerator. Bullets pinged off the trunk as they fishtailed onto the street. In her rearview mirror, blue lights converged on the conference center. "You okay?" she asked Darnell, who was breathing hard in the passenger seat. "Been following him," he gasped. "Knew he'd try something." "Thank you." She meant it. "But now we've got to move fast. Those sirens aren't all friendly." They sped through yellowing traffic lights toward the rising columns of City Hall. The recording device pressed against her ribs, solid, secure, heavy with evidence. More sirens joined the chorus behind them. Rochelle gripped the steering wheel tighter, every heartbeat a prayer that they'd make it in time. City Hall's grand chamber buzzed with tension. Every seat was filled, with people standing along the walls and spilling into the hallways. News cameras lined the back, their red lights blinking like watchful eyes. The emergency town hall meeting had drawn hundreds. Linda Harrow perched near the front, her lawyer's hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Her face wore that familiar mask of wounded innocence. Behind her, Chief Deputy Miles lounged with calculated casualness, though his fingers drummed restlessly on his armrest. Mayor Briggs stood at the podium, his usual commanding presence diminished by recent events. "We're here tonight to address serious allegations regarding Jefferson Elementary School and—" The double doors burst open. Rochelle strode in, Darnell Hayes right behind her. Her jacket was torn, a bruise darkening on her cheek, but her eyes blazed with purpose. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. "Captain Gaines," Mayor Briggs stammered, "this is a scheduled meeting." "Perfect timing, then." Rochelle's voice carried through the chamber. She approached the podium, each step deliberate. "Because I have something everyone needs to hear." Miles half rose, but Officer Sandra Lee blocked his path. Other officers moved to strategic positions around the room. They'd chosen their side. Rochelle reached the podium, plugging a small device into the sound system. Her fingers were steady, despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "Before we begin," she said, "I want everyone to remember why we're here. This isn't about policies or procedures. This is about a child, my child, and every other child they've hurt." She pressed play. Miles's voice filled the chamber. 5,000 per incident, standard rate. 10,000 for the really bad ones. The crowd stirred. Harrow's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. "That's illegal recording!" Miles shouted, standing again. "She's trying to—" But Rochelle was already connecting her phone to the projection system. Financial records appeared on the massive screen behind her, spreadsheets, bank transfers, emails. Years of systematic cover-ups laid bare. "Every racist incident," Rochelle continued, her voice sharp and clear. "Every complaint from a black parent, every case of discrimination. They buried it all. For money, for power, for control." She clicked through document after document. Harrow's smug expression cracked. Miles's face had gone pale. But they made one mistake. Rochelle's hand went to her jacket pocket. They thought no one was watching. The screen flickered. Security camera footage appeared. The classroom. The day Ava's world changed. The footage Darnell had saved, that they'd tried so hard to delete. The chamber fell silent as they watched. Ms. Harrow's clinical cruelty, Ava's tears, the other children's frozen faces, every brutal second captured in stark black and white. Someone in the crowd sobbed. Others turned away. But no one left. "My daughter," Rochelle's voice caught slightly, "was not the first. But I promise you, she will be the last." She turned to face Harrow directly. "You didn't just hurt Ava. You hurt every child who watched. You taught them that cruelty wears a smile. That power means never having to say you're sorry." Harrow's lawyer tried to interrupt, but Rochelle pressed on. "And you," she faced Miles. "You protected her, protected all of them. How many children's pain did you trade for your precious funding?" Miles exploded from his seat, shoving past Sandra Lee. He charged toward the podium, face contorted with the same rage she'd seen at the conference center. But this time, she wasn't alone. Officers moved as one, intercepting him. The crowd surged to their feet. Someone started chanting, "Justice for Ava!" Others joined in, the sound building like thunder. "Justice for Ava! Justice for Ava!" Miles struggled against the officers holding him, his carefully maintained facade crumbling completely. "You don't understand. We built something here. We had order." "Order built on suffering isn't order," Rochelle said, her voice carrying over the chants. "It's oppression." More police entered the chamber. Not local officers, but state police. They moved with purpose, carrying warrants and handcuffs. Harrow's lawyer tried to hustle her toward a side exit, but they were cut off. The lawyer raised his hands in surrender as Harrow was placed under arrest. Miles thrashed harder as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "This isn't over! You have no idea what you've done!" "I know exactly what I've done." Rochelle watched as they led him away. "I've shown my daughter that truth matters, that justice is possible, that her voice counts." The chanting had become a roar. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Rochelle stood still at the podium, watching as Harrow and Miles were escorted out. Only then, as the heavy doors swung shut behind them, did she finally exhale. The breath seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her, carrying months of fear and fury with it. Sandra Lee approached the podium, touching her arm gently. "You did it, Captain." Rochelle looked out at the crowd, at the faces filled with shock, relief, determination, at the children who would remember this day, at the future they'd just reclaimed. "No," she said softly. "We did it. All of us who refused to stay silent." The chanting continued, echoing through City Hall's marble corridors. "Justice for Ava! Justice for Ava!" But it wasn't just for Ava anymore. It was for every child who'd ever been told to be smaller, quieter, less themselves. It was for every parent who'd fought back against a system designed to break them. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin hospital curtains, casting warm stripes across Rochelle's bed. Her ribs ached, and the bruise on her cheek had deepened to purple, but she couldn't stop smiling. The TV mounted on the wall played footage from last night's town hall meeting on a loop. Clara Benson slipped into the room, carrying 2 cups of real coffee. A welcome change from the hospital's watered-down version. Her press badge caught the light as she settled into the chair beside the bed. "You're not going to believe this," Clara said, handing Rochelle a cup. "The FBI just raided Miles's office. They're finding paper trails going back 15 years. Systematic discrimination, financial fraud, witness intimidation. It's all there." Rochelle took a careful sip, savoring both the coffee and the news. "And Harrow? She's singing like a canary." Clara pulled out her notepad. "Turns out she's done this before. 3 different school districts. They'd shuffle her around whenever complaints got too loud. But this time?" Clara grinned. "This time, there's video." A nurse came in to check Rochelle's vitals, pausing to squeeze her hand. "My daughter saw what you did," she whispered. "Thank you." After she left, Clara continued. The school board emergency meeting lasted exactly 27 minutes. You know what happens when rats realize the ship is sinking? They turn on each other, every member trying to save themselves by exposing everyone else. They're dissolving the board? Better. The state's stepping in. Complete restructuring. New policies. New oversight. New everything. Clara leaned forward. And get this. They're naming the Oversight Committee after Ava. Rochelle's eyes welled up. She blinked hard, trying to maintain composure. She needs to hear that. After everything they put her through, oh, it gets better. Clara pulled up a news alert on her phone. Mayor Briggs just announced his resignation. Called it personal reasons. But everyone knows. He can't survive being linked to this. The TV caught their attention as breaking news graphics flashed across the screen. The anchor's voice filled the room. In a stunning development, federal authorities have expanded their investigation to include 3 neighboring school districts. Sources say evidence suggests a widespread pattern of discriminatory practices and financial misconduct. "You didn't just break one story," Clara said softly. "You cracked open the whole damn system." A knock at the door interrupted them. Police Commissioner Wallace entered, looking unusually humble. "Captain Gaines," he said, fidgeting with his tie. "I hope you're feeling better." Rochelle sat up straighter, despite her protesting ribs. "Sir, the department, we owe you an apology. A big one." He cleared his throat. "Your reinstatement papers are being processed. Full rank and privileges restored, with back pay." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me. You earned it." He hesitated. "The press is calling you the captain who fought back. It's trending nationally. Every major network wants an interview." Clara smirked. "Already got that covered, Commissioner. Exclusive rights." After Wallace left, Rochelle's phone buzzed with a text from Sandra Lee. "Turn on Channel 7." Clara grabbed the remote, switching channels. They caught the middle of a live press conference outside Jefferson Elementary. The new interim superintendent stood at a podium, surrounded by community leaders. And so, by unanimous vote, Jefferson Elementary will be renamed the Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Academy, honoring our city's first black educator. Dr. Jenkins broke barriers 70 years ago, and today we continue her legacy of courage and change. The camera panned to show Dr. Jenkins's elderly daughter in the crowd, tears streaming down her face as the crowd applauded. "When can I go back?" Rochelle turned to see Ava in the doorway, her aunt right behind her. "Baby!" Rochelle opened her arms, and Ava rushed to her bedside. "Careful of Mommy's ribs, sweetie." Ava climbed carefully onto the bed. "Everyone at school's talking about you. Even Ms. Peterson said you're a hero." "I'm not a hero, baby. I'm just your mom." "That's what makes you a hero," Clara said, standing to leave. "Sometimes that's all it takes. One mother saying, enough." 3 days later, Rochelle stood in the freshly painted hallway of Dr. Dorothy Jenkins' Academy. The bruises had faded to yellow, but she still moved carefully. New posters lined the walls, diverse faces, inspirational quotes, student artwork celebrating different cultures. The morning assembly bell rang. Students filed into the auditorium, buzzing with excitement. This was Ava's first day back. Rochelle watched from the side as her daughter walked in. Ava's hair was growing back, styled in a proud little afro. But it was her walk that made Rochelle's heart swell. Head high, shoulders back, stride confident. The students erupted in applause. Not polite, scattered clapping, but real, thunderous appreciation. Some kids stood up, then more. Soon the whole assembly was on their feet. Ava blushed, but didn't duck her head. She smiled and walked to her seat, every inch her mother's daughter. The new principal, a warm-voiced woman named Dr. Carter, took the microphone. Today marks a new chapter in our school's history. But more importantly, it marks a new chapter in how we treat each other, how we celebrate our differences, how we stand up for what's right. Rochelle watched as Ava found her friends, not just her old group, but new faces too. They made space for her, welcomed her, protected her. The morning sunlight streamed through the auditorium windows, catching the new bronze letters in the entryway. Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Academy, where every voice matters. The ancient oak tree in town square stretched its branches wide, as if embracing the hundreds of people gathered beneath. Its leaves rustled in the late afternoon breeze, casting dancing shadows across the assembled crowd. Folding chairs filled the square, with people standing shoulder to shoulder in the back, all faces turned toward the simple wooden podium. Reverend Sims stood tall, his gray hair catching the sunlight as he adjusted the microphone. His deep voice carried across the hushed gathering. "We come together today," he began, "not just to celebrate victory, but to honor courage. The kind of courage that speaks truth when lies are more comfortable. The kind that stands tall when others would have us bow our heads." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Let us pray," he said, bowing his head. "Lord, we thank you for the ones who stood up when it was dangerous. For Captain Rochelle Gaines, who showed us that a mother's love can move mountains and change systems. For Mr. Darnell Hayes, who risked everything to preserve the truth. For every person who refused to look away when injustice showed its face." The crowd murmured, "Amen," and Reverend Sims lifted his head. "Today, we don't just remember the pain. We celebrate the healing. We honor those who helped us find our way back to each other." Mayor Pro Tem Richardson stepped up next, her voice clear and determined. "As your interim mayor, my first act is to announce the city's new anti-discrimination initiative." She held up a thick document. "This isn't just words on paper. This is a binding commitment, with real teeth and real consequences." She outlined the key points: mandatory cultural sensitivity training for all city employees, an independent review board for discrimination complaints, and increased funding for diversity programs in schools. But the crowd really stirred when she announced the initiative's official name, the Ava Gaines Act. In the front row, Ava squeezed her aunt's hand, her eyes wide. Rochelle, seated on the stage, felt tears threatening, but held them back. This wasn't a time for crying, it was a time for strength. Darnell Hayes was called forward next. He walked slowly, still limping slightly from his injuries, but his face showed no fear now. The mayor pro tem presented him with a civilian service medal as the crowd rose to their feet, applauding the quiet janitor who had risked everything to expose the truth. "I just did what was right," he said simply into the microphone, his voice trembling slightly. "What any parent would do." He looked at Rochelle. "What any human being should do." When Rochelle's turn came, she stood carefully, her ribs still tender. The podium felt different from the ones she'd stood behind as a police captain. More personal, more real. She looked out at the sea of faces. Black, white, brown, Asian, the whole community represented. A few months ago, she began, I thought I understood what it meant to protect and serve. I wore my badge with pride, believing in the system. She touched her captain's bars, newly restored. But sometimes the system needs protecting from itself. Sometimes serving means standing up to the very institutions we're part of. She described the journey, not just the investigation and confrontation, but the personal cost. The nights holding Ava through nightmares. The fear of losing everything she'd worked for. The moment she realized that justice was more important than job security. But here's what I learned, she continued, her voice growing stronger. Change doesn't come from institutions. It comes from people. From a janitor brave enough to save evidence. From a reporter who wouldn't back down. From a community that refused to accept pretty words instead of real action. She outlined her plans for rebuilding trust between the police department and the community. Starting next week, we're launching community liaison programs in every neighborhood. Officers will attend cultural education sessions led by community members. And most importantly, we're establishing a youth council to advise on policies that affect our children. As she spoke, she saw faces in the crowd beginning to nod. People who had protested against the police department weeks ago were now leaning forward, listening intently. Trust wouldn't come back overnight. But this was a start. My daughter taught me something through all this, Rochelle said, her voice softening. She taught me that sometimes the biggest act of courage is simply being yourself in a world that tries to shame you for it. At that moment, Ava couldn't contain herself anymore. She broke free from her aunt's hold and ran to the stage, taking the steps 2 at a time. Rochelle opened her arms, and Ava flew into them, burying her face in her mother's uniform. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Holding her daughter close, Rochelle looked across the gathered faces. She saw Clara Benson in the back, notebook in hand, but for once not writing, just watching. Darnell Hayes sat with his teenage son, their hands clasped together. Reverend Sims stood to the side, nodding slowly, his face peaceful. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant golds and deep reds, its light catching the leaves of the old oak tree. The same tree that had witnessed segregation, integration, and now this moment of transformation. Shadow and light played across faces that weeks ago had been divided by fear and mistrust, but now showed something different. Hope, maybe. Or determination. Or simply the recognition that they were all, finally, on the same side. A month later, winter sunlight streamed through Ava's bedroom window as Rochelle gently worked coconut oil through her daughter's growing curls. The soft puffs had sprouted into a beautiful crown of natural hair, each coil perfect in its own way. In the mirror, mother and daughter shared a quiet smile. "You sure you're ready, baby?" Rochelle asked, though she already knew the answer. She'd watched Ava practice her speech every night for 2 weeks, each time standing a little taller, speaking a little louder. "I'm ready, Mom." Ava touched one of her curls, letting it spring back into place. They need to hear this. Rochelle smoothed the collar of Ava's yellow dress, the same one she'd worn on that terrible day months ago. But now it felt different. Not a reminder of pain, but a symbol of triumph. "You look beautiful," she said, pinning a small silver butterfly clip into Ava's hair. The drive to Jefferson Elementary, now renamed Mary McLeod Bethune Elementary, was peaceful. The winter trees stretched bare branches toward a crystal-clear sky, and fresh paint covered the walls where hate speech had once been scrawled. The parking lot was already filling with parents and community members arriving for the Black History Month ceremony. Inside the auditorium, the transformation was even more striking. Student artwork lined the walls, portraits of civil rights leaders, paintings of African masks, and collages celebrating Black excellence. A banner stretched across the stage reading, "Our history, our pride, our future." Principal Diana Washington, the school's first Black principal, greeted them at the door. "Ava, you're our closing speaker," she said with a warm smile. "We saved the best for last." Other students hurried past, clutching note cards and adjusting costumes. A group of fifth graders practiced their steps for an African dance performance. Teachers arranged chairs and checked microphones. The nervous energy was electric. Rochelle found her seat in the front row next to Clara Benson, who'd become a close friend since breaking the story. Darnell Hayes sat nearby with his family, nodding in greeting. The auditorium filled quickly. Parents, teachers, community members, and even a few local news cameras. The program began with the younger grades singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing." A third-grade class performed a skit about Ruby Bridges. Two fourth-graders gave a presentation on inventors like George Washington Carver and Garrett Morgan. Each performance drew enthusiastic applause, but there was a palpable anticipation for the final speaker. When Principal Washington stepped up to introduce Ava, the room fell silent. "Our last presenter," she said, "is someone who taught us all about courage, identity, and the power of speaking truth. Please welcome Ava Gaines." Ava walked to the podium, her yellow dress bright against the dark stage. She adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath, and began. "My speech is called 'They Tried to Take My Hair,'" she said, her voice clear and steady. "But this isn't just about hair. It's about who gets to decide what's beautiful, who gets to tell us who we are." She described that day in the classroom, not with anger or hatred, but with truth that cut deeper than either. She spoke about the shame she'd felt, the confusion, the pain. But then her voice grew stronger. "They thought they could break me by taking my hair," she continued. "They thought they could make me smaller, make me hide. But they were wrong. My hair grew back stronger. And so did I." The audience sat transfixed as this 10-year-old girl spoke about identity, about pride, about the difference between rules and justice. Some wiped tears. Others nodded in recognition of their own battles. "My mom taught me something important," Ava said, looking directly at Rochelle. "She taught me that sometimes you have to fight back with more than just words. You have to fight back by being exactly who you are, as loud as you can be." She touched one of her curls. "This is my crown now. Nobody can take it away. Because it's not just hair. It's my history, my culture, my pride, and I'm not hiding anymore." The applause started before she finished her last word. It built slowly, then erupted into a standing ovation that shook the auditorium. People rose to their feet, cheering and crying. Principal Washington dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Clara squeezed Rochelle's hand. "She's incredible," she whispered. "Just like her mother." Rochelle couldn't speak. She watched her daughter standing tall on that stage, bathed in spotlight, her natural hair forming a perfect halo around her face. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she remembered holding that sobbing, wounded child months ago. Now she saw a warrior, a leader, a force of nature. Students crowded around Ava as she left the stage, asking to touch her hair, complimenting her speech. Parents approached Rochelle, thanking her for starting a movement that had transformed not just the school, but the entire community. As they gathered their things to leave, Rochelle caught sight of their reflection in the auditorium window. Mother and daughter, both standing tall, both wearing their natural hair like crowns. She thought about all they'd been through, all they'd fought for, all they'd won. "They tried to take her hair," Rochelle whispered to herself, watching Ava laugh with her friends. but they only sharpened her crown.